Hello, viewers, subscribers. It's Hank McGurk. Probably about the third time I'm recording this, but the show must go on. This is part 5 of my 7-part series about economic collapse. Jargon-free, you don't need to know any statistics to identify several of the reasons the economy is collapsing and will collapse. This segment is called No Solution. Now, the reason I call it No Solution is because it's based particularly and specifically on software. And why am I being critical of software? Well, way back in the day, in the 90s, well, actually in the 80s, there was some legislation that was passed that made it so software companies were not liable for the damages that the bugs in their software created. So, for example, you own an accounting business, you've got all of your accounting on the books, everything is digitally stored, and because of some unforeseen flaw, some unforeseen bug in the code, you lose all of your files, and then you have to pay somebody to come back and put that all in. So it left the liability to the business owner to back their files up. And if you lost it, hey, you lost it. The software company was not liable for the bug that was in their software. That's the way it was. Kind of in a Wild West sort of way. Well, here we are 20 years later. And we're in a situation where we've got a huge software company that dominates the market in every way. And I'm not going to be specific in name dropping because God only knows what the ramifications of that might be. But if you're watching this channel, you're probably smart enough to put it together. And it's economically advantageous for this monopoly to release buggy code or garbage software or a crap product, to use a different sort of vernacular, and then make it so that you have to buy the next edition or the latest edition so you'll be more secure. Let me give you a specific and concrete example of what's going on with that. Windows XP is a pretty good, solid operating system. Many people will disagree with that, but the fact of the matter is, many people that weren't very familiar with operating systems and software learned XP, especially I'm talking about baby boomers and folks like that I've interacted with, that were happy with XP, that had learned it, didn't want to reinstall an operating system. And so Microsoft says we're not going to patch that software anymore, even though for most purposes, for most businesses, they don't want to retool, they don't want to buy another piece of software. In fact, they probably would pay for patches. But since XP no longer gets that support, new holes and things are created. Actually, the older the piece of software is, the more tried and true it becomes, because it's more tested. The exploits aren't as easy to find because it's had more time out there to become more resilient, more durable. So in this crazy mixed up world, the United States military comes to Microsoft and says, all of our people are using XP, they like it, we don't want to upgrade, they're too fogey to want to switch it up. I mean, we're talking about guys in the Pentagon, pretty much, for the most part. They don't want to switch up their software. And so Microsoft agrees to patch XP for the military, but won't release those patches for civilians. And that's utterly ridiculous. We have a monopoly, a company that it's a monopoly, that it is specifically releasing in the future buggy code because they have no legal liability for it, for the losses incurred by any business about it. Then the actual government is subsidizing that monopoly and disallowing the taxpayer the benefit from the patches that would make our economy overall more secure. The security flaws a lot of times in software are pretty abundant and pretty obvious, and I think in many cases, and there's no real need for me to prove this in any specific way, this is just supposition here, I suppose, but pretty easy for people to find the exploits in this software, and intentionally easy for these exploits to be in there. So you got to get the latest antivirus or this or that, these extra things. So that's the first piece of this puzzle as far as no solution goes. It's the monopoly, number one, the fact that we're being surpassed by other countries that are releasing software because they are held to a standard of accountability where they are liable for losses. So that pretty much covers that point. And the next point is open source software. Why do you see open source software? All these things that I'm doing right now have been made possible by open source software. HitFilm 4, OBS, Open Broadcasting Studio, Audacity, which I use for audio. All this fine collection of open source software that makes it possible for me to be able to create content. That's how low money velocity is in the economy. Money velocity is so low that utilities that I find to be very, very, very useful, I don't have the money to be able to contribute back into these organizations that are not treated as 501c3. They don't get special status. They rely specifically on donations only. And it's a crazy mixed up world when you have all these wonderful companies that are producing things for the general public to be able to consume and use for free in order to produce new and more digital media. And they're reliant specifically and solely on donation. In the past, it used to be somebody that saw a great company could go and they could buy stock in the company. And by buying a little stock in the company, when the company's value rose because it was valuable, there was no bugs in it, people began to use it more and more and more, you would get a return if you decided to sell that stock. Or the company could issue its own debt, like a bond, for example, where they're essentially going to pay the bondholder a dividend or a share, an interest of the profits that the business is making for the loan until they get to the point where they can do a buyback or something of that nature. And the proportionally the dividends would grow, the bond would become worth more. So the investor could take the risk in these startup companies. That's how it used to be done. Now there's so many legal impediments and it's so difficult to create a company, to go through those channels. It's people have just thrown their hands up in the air and said, you know what? Just donate the money. If you can afford, just donate. And that is not an efficient way to run an economy. We are essentially so cash strapped in this country now that development is being run on donation or extortion. So that's where I'm going to stop section 5 of the 7-part series, No Solution, although section 6 is going to talk specifically about copyright and digital media and how copyright is destroying yet another facet of our economy. So that's Hank. That's the end of section 5, No Solution. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe, because that does help me with my metrics moving forward. I usually don't ask for that thing. I don't monetize the channel, obviously, because probably a lot of things that I have to say are not very popular as far as advertisers go. So it would be very helpful if you just subscribe. And if I don't deliver the content that you want to see in the future, then you need to let me know so I can be more effective. I've got a handful of really great subscribers that I owe a great deal to. I want to recognize them. AZI, the MLG Pro, I want to recognize you right now, definitely, because you're always out there checking my videos out and looking at them with a critical eye. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, because I've been able to improve the quality of my videos, especially with the Fallout. I mean, you're one of the rare people that get to see the cuts before they have to go private for things I'll cover in section 6. And guys like T. Gus, been there since the very beginning, and I appreciate that. Definitely helping me improve every step of the way with constructive criticism. And when I first set out to make YouTube videos, all I really wanted to do was showcase how great I was at Fallout, because I put thousands of hours in, and I do. I'm tooting my own horn a little bit here, but it's some world-class play, and I just wanted to be able to showcase that and have a little fun with that while I was working on other things. But the response to some of the topics that I'm covering has been so overwhelmingly positive, driving me to create more content like this. It would be really wonderful to have more subscribers to help construct these arguments, so we have a path to improvement. So I'm going to leave it right there. That's the end of No Solution. Hopefully we'll find a solution. It's been Hank McGurk. Catch you guys later. Peace.